All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm David Burnett, your host for tonight, and I want to welcome the fellas. It has been a long 2.5 months since we were together before, and let's do it again. Earl Go-Go Rush, how you doing?
I'm doing great, David. Great to see you.
Larry Abels, and you?
Fine, David. How about yourself?
I am doing great here in the capital city of Indiana. And Chuck Snowden, how are you?
Man, I am wonderful. It's great to see you fellas again. I can't wait to kick off our third year. And hope you guys had a fantastic summer. I can't wait to discuss sports with some of the most knowledgeable people I know.
One thing, before we get started, I want to acknowledge the gear that is being worn by Chuck Snowden and myself, Real Fellas. The gear is on sale for $10.99. So just put your orders in and we can send them out to you.
And I have inventory in stock too.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it's been a heck of a summer of sports, and the NFL season starts tomorrow night. Kansas City against the Detroit Lions. The defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs look like a juggernaut. We're going to talk about them in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we got to talk about one special sports event that happened this past Saturday in Texas. TCU, Texas Christian University, powerhouse, ranked number 9, upset by the University of Colorado. Deion Sanders coaching, Deion Sanders talking and delivering. I just want to get some thoughts about that game, the impact of Colorado's transition from losers to winners. Let me start with you, Larry.
Well, I thought the game was entertaining, so to speak. And, the one thing that I recall by watching that game was I remember TCU, we were real happy for them last year, but they really didn't have much of a defense. They couldn't stop people, and they were getting away by outscoring everybody. And they got bit by Colorado because they was able to score with them, and they came up with a stop when they needed to come up with a stop.
45-42 was a high-scoring game, and I don't know what I expected from a game like that. I thought Deion and Colorado would make a good showing, but I'm not sure that I expected them to beat TCU. Earl, your thoughts?
I definitely did not expect them to beat TCU, but I kind of thought that TCU, you guys kept talking about how good they were. They went to the championship game, but if you ask me, I believe it'll be a fluke. But we have the rest of this season to see whether last year was a fluke for TCU. I mean, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to see a team be in the championship game and then lose to Colorado the next year. There's something funny going on there. I'm thinking that their league their games last year were a fluke. TCU.
Well, let me ask you this, and let me ask Chuck this. We'll get Chuck into this conversation here. The transfer portal played a big role in what happened with the University of Colorado and what Deion Sanders, the head coach, was able to do. Essentially, he turned over almost the entire team, about 90-some% of the team. Colorado won one game last year. They have not been a relevant force in the Pac-12 in years. What happened? Can we put it all in Deion's lap, Chuck?
Well, I think we have to, man. You know, Deion has always been a winner, and he told you that. He's won at every single level. He's won not only one, but won championships and so forth. He's he's a big-time motivator. He got, 75 plus kids to come to Colorado. He believed, he made them believe. And Earl makes a good point, although I would say that TCU is a good team. I got to give Colorado the credit. And they beat them at TCU, 95-degree weather, and it was just one hell of a game. I mean, shout out to that group.
Let's talk a little bit about the stars of the game. I think right now, if the season were to stop right now at one game, which is kind of ridiculous, but, this is a talk show, Travis Hunter, the defensive back and wide receiver for University of Colorado, who came with Deion from Jackson State. What can you say? What can you say? Earl, thoughts?
Those guys, if they play well, if they continue to play consistent, if they consistently play as well as they have a shot for the Heisman.
Okay. Larry?
So the question is whether Hunter has a shot at being like the Heisman.
I think he's got to be as of game one, which is kind of silly, but again, this is a show. He had an interception. He had 11 passes caught. He had over 100 yards in receiving yards. That's got to speak for something. I mean, what other football player in the country has those kind of that kind of resume?
Yeah, he had a great game. I mean, I think they had like 4 receivers that had over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Anyway, but back to my earlier segment, what I said is TCU has no defense. So I'm anxious to see what he does. If he can keep that up, sure, absolutely. But of course, we have to see Williams play and a few other people play before we really, get on that. But he's certainly off to a great start.
You David, you mentioned a couple of stats there. The one stat is amazing. I think he played 115 snaps or something.
Yep.
Offense and defense. And like I said, it was 95-degree weather at their place. And he said after the game, he said, "Hey, I could have played another game." Wow.
Well, that's what you do when you're young. When you're old like us, you wake up with pain every day.
Right. By the way, he was the number 1 high school player in the country, and was going to go to Florida State, which is Deion's
alma mater.
Deion convinced him to come to Jackson State, and then convinced him to come out to Colorado. And wow. I bet you there are other two-way players that are considering Colorado right now.
The other player from Colorado, and we'll move on from Colorado after this thought here, is Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son. In fact, he has 2 sons playing on that team. His quarterback son, Shedeur, who threw for over 500 yards passing. I don't care who it came against. Weak TCU defense or not, 500 yards pass. How many quarterbacks do that? Not very many. Could Shedeur Sanders be a Heisman candidate? Guys?
Well, look, again, that's the same as Hunter. We thought if he's playing consistent as he's playing now, I mean, the obvious answer is yes. I mean, 500 yards, but you don't tell me this guy got 500 yards for 10, 12 games. He ain't going to be a Heisman candidate.
Zero interceptions.
He'd have to be. Chuck, your thoughts?
I think he was terrific. I mean, TCU took the lead late in that game. I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes to go, and Sanders took him back down the field, scored the touchdown, hit a freshman, and freshman ran down the sideline for a score. And his brother, as you mentioned earlier, Shiloh, he had 10 tackles for Colorado, and he led the team in tackles. So both the Sanders boys did really well in that game.
Okay, to wrap this, and Larry, your thoughts here real quickly before we
Well,
move
I thought
on.
he had a very good game. He made a number of third down conversions. He was patient in the pocket a few times, and even when he was kind of hurt, he delivered the ball on target. But I still think TCU's defense sucks. So,
Well, it's going to be an interesting college football season, no doubt. And we'll talk more about college football in just a moment. But look, let's get back to the big kahuna in sports, and that's the NFL. The NFL season kicks off in earnest tomorrow night in Kansas City. The world champion Kansas City Chiefs taking on the resurgent Detroit Lions. Do the Lions have any chance at all? And I'm going to start with you, Larry.
In a game tomorrow night, it's funny how everybody pumps the Lions up. Everybody healthy, everybody playing well. I don't think they have a chance against Kansas City. That said, I think Chris Jones is still holding out, and Kelsey might be questionable. So, yeah, if those two guys don't play, their odds increase.
Well, they do have – Kansas City does still have Patrick Mahomes, who is, without question, the number one quarterback. But I think your point is valid. Chuck, your thoughts on
I think they have a
tomorrow night's
chance. I
game.
do think Detroit has a chance. Detroit closed the season out really strong last year. I think they won 8 out of their last 9 or something of that nature. And they added a couple of running backs to that team, and they seem to be healthy coming into the first game of the season. And if Kelsey and Jones are missing, they have a fighter's chance. I do believe that.
Earl.
No, they don't have a chance at all.
Okay, that's the sports doctor's diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
the game
what's
is in
the
Kansas
spread?
City, correct? It's in Kansas City, correct?
It is in Kansas City,
No,
as all Super Bowl champions get to do that on Thursday night before the season starts.
No.
No chance. None.
They have a chance because
Point
they both
spread.
playing. Because they're
Your
playing
show's
games.
coming up on Sunday night,
They win.
Sunday afternoon
The Chiefs are winning by 10.
by 10.
Yeah.
Everybody, you heard it from the sports doctor,
Right.
Earl Go Rush. Kansas City by 10. Put your money down.
Even if Kelsey is not there, huh, Go? Even if Kelsey.
Kelsey is probably one of the no. Even if Kelsey is not there, they will not. They don't have a chance.
Now, before we move on about Kansas City, this whole thing about slotting salaries and who gets what, I just want to speak up for Travis Kelce. He's the best receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's not slated to make the most money of a receiver. In fact, he would technically, if Kansas City had a great wide receiver, Kelce would make $10 to $15 million less. So, there's something completely wrong and wacky about the way the NFL distributes its money. You saw the defensive player get a record $172 million contract for 4 years.
Bosa.
Nick, is it Nick Bosa or which Bosa is it?
I think it's Nick. Nick
Bosa, from the
from Ohio State.
From the 49ers. And that's a 30 on a season average. That's a 30-some million dollar per year contract. Yet Travis Kelce, best receiver on the best team in the world, would be lucky to make $15 million. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous. But anyway, I digress.
The union negotiated that, and that's the problem. They did. And what they
I hear you. I hear your point.
And I have a solution that they could do. They could act like a regular union and really decide to spread the money around. They let the quarterbacks get a disproportionate amount. I mean,
I agree.
Most normal unions look out for all of their players. Their union doesn't seem to do that.
They would probably tell us that their union is looking out for the players, but the reality is the greatest players don't always get the best money. And it's who's good at the particular time. Speaking of who gets the money, let's talk some quarterbacks right now. Aaron Rodgers, number one story in the NFL in terms of quarterbacks this year, moves from Green Bay to the New York Jets. He's 39 years old. He talks a big game. He is arguably one of the best quarterbacks in many years. How will he do in New York? Earl, let me start with you.
If the offensive line is serviceable, Aaron Rodgers will do great. It all depends on his offensive line, no more, no less. He has the receivers, he has the running backs.
Mm-hmm.
They have an awesome defense. The only thing that they're hurting at is the offensive line. If they can't block, I don't care who you are. You can ask Patrick Holmes how he did when they played in the Super Bowl when the line wasn't blocking for him. You gotta have an offensive line. That's the key. If the offensive line stands up, Aaron Rodgers might be MVP.
MVP. Chuck, do you buy that MVP?
I don't know. I don't know about the MVP, but I tell you, they've got everything else is in place, and they just needed a trigger man. They've got a trigger man now. That receiver that they got is a pretty good receiver. That defense is solid. Didn't they even pick up the running back from the Vikings?
Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've incorporated him into the mix. I mean, they got the pieces. If the trigger man can do his thing, they should be right there. They're in a tough league. I mean, they're in a tough division.
Let me just say this. How many years ago were the Jets in the Super Bowl?
Oh, it's a long time ago.
55 years.
Joe Namath.
55 years. That's what we're talking about. January 1969, when the Jets won the Super Bowl against the Baltimore Colts. They're not going to go anywhere.
But they got the model. The model's in place because Brady went to Tampa. Tampa won the Super Bowl.
Brady had multiple Super Bowls behind him.
Well,
Aaron Rodgers is one of the most overhyped players in the history of the NFL.
He's not overhyped.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Anyway, let's talk some quarterbacks. Other than Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, can I comment on Rodgers?
Oh, you sure can, Larry. I'm sorry.
I think with like the other two, I agree that they have a lot of weapons in place. As far as going to the Super Bowl, I think he'll be all right. I'm not even sure he's the best team in his division. I mean, Buffalo's still there, and Miami's not bad. So, but I think he'll play well. Like Earl said, if he has the time, and I expect him, he gets rid of the ball well. They picked up some nice pieces. So I look for him to be pretty successful this year.
All right. Baltimore Ravens. They've got a quarterback that they finally got back in the fold.
And pieces.
Do we give the Ravens any shot at all? Jackson's back. Earl.
I'm sorry, David. I was thinking about something that you had said earlier that I wanted to comment on.
Well, if you want to comment on it, go ahead.
I had a question. I'm getting a feeling that you do not like Aaron Rodgers. Is that one of the cases? Because if that's one of the cases, then I understand why you said what you said, because I know how you are.
What
for you to say?
What do you mean by you know how I am? Well, you do know how I am.
Yeah,
You're
if
right.
you don't like
I don't
somebody,
like him.
you say
I don't
ridiculous
like him.
stuff. Okay.
But I respect his
We can
talent.
move on. The show's been moving good. We can move on now. Okay, I'm sorry.
Earl, since you're talking, Baltimore Ravens.
They're going to be awesome. I don't know why people. Okay, Jackson's been hurt 5 games the last 2 years. Okay, well, so what happens if he ain't hurt this year?
Ooh-wee.
Lamar
He
Jackson
might be an MVP if
well, he's already got one MVP in his trophy case. He's already got one.
If the wide receiver Odell Beckham is healthy, Jackson Ravens are going to be a beast.
If Chuck.
I like him. I agree with Go-Go. You know, everybody's talking about Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so. I mean, it's New York City, etc. But I tell you what, Baltimore has some receivers with Odell, and they drafted this kid Zay Flowers or something. So they've got more weapons this year than they've had in a long time, and they've already had a great tight end in Mark Edwards or Andrews. And they got the best kicker in football, maybe ever in the history of football, ever. The other day, he was doing a warm-up kick from 87 yards.
87 yards.
87 yards. He was doing a warm-up kick. Anyway, the point is, I think Lamar, I think he's going to have a special year, and I'm looking forward to that.
Now, we're going to talk quarterbacks for just a few more moments because quarterback, of course, as much as I hate talking about him, is the most important position, highest paid position. By the way, Aaron Rodgers is going to make $60 million this year. $60 million for one season. But anyway, who do we see?
Hey, David, can I comment on Jackson?
Say what?
Can I comment on Jackson?
Just jump in.
You keep leaving me out of this, man.
I didn't mean to.
I think Baltimore has as good a chances coming out of the AFC as anybody. I think they have a real good team, provided health, of course. But no, I look for Jackson to come back. I thought Baltimore hung in there pretty well last year, even though he missed the last 5 games. And they had lost a couple of games early in the season that they probably should have won. But I think they have a good team, a good organization, and I'm looking for big things out of Baltimore and Jackson in particular.
Okay. Let me ask you, and let me start with you, Larry, so I don't leave you out. Russell Wilson is got to be the quarterback whipping boy for all of the NFL. He's had 9 outstanding seasons and 1 really mediocre season. Terrible. Is Russell Wilson going to be able to rebound? Because he's taken some unfair shots for 1 bad year. And a lot of quarterbacks have had bad years, but didn't have a Super Bowl or an appearance and a Super Bowl win and 9 Pro Bowl top level seasons. Your thoughts about Russell Wilson?
I mean, he's essentially in a "what have you done for me lately" situation. His record is what it is. He played well. He played very poorly last year. Now his coaches come out and said things like it was Hackett's fault, and he's kind of threw Hackett under the bus and all of that, and stood behind him. So I think he's trying to eliminate some of the pressure on Wilson, but Wilson has to play. I think it's 50-50 from what I saw last year. Some of it I thought probably was the coaching staff, but some of it was him for sure.
But I'm going to stick with you, Larry, just for a moment. But I just feel like the piling on of Russell Wilson was excessive. Is it his personality? Is his personality in the way?
I'm not sure what piling on. If we're talking about his playing is what he should be criticized for. I don't get into the off-field stuff, but he didn't play well last year. I mean,
but there are a lot of quarterbacks who didn't play well and
he had a precipitous drop from what his level before that. I mean, it wasn't like he fell off a little bit. He fell off a lot from what we were used to seeing with him. And I think most of the criticism he got with respect to his playing was fair.
Well, the playing part is fair. I think some of the stuff was a little personal because guys just don't like Russell Wilson for whatever reason, however he presents himself. He's kind of hokey, but he seems like a genuine guy. Earl, your thoughts?
Well, I could tell you why they don't like him, but
tell us. Don't hold back.
No, there are some kids that are watching the show, so I realized the last couple of years I've been just speaking like we really are in the street, so I have to watch my language. But they don't like him because they compare him to more like a female dog. That's why they don't like him.
Wow. Oh, Earl. That's going to upset a lot of kids.
No, I didn't want to say the real word. That's not necessary.
Most of us know what the real word is. Chuck, your thoughts?
I don't think they piled on. I thought Russell Wilson played terrible last year, and I don't think if any quarterback played like he did, they get criticized. I don't care who it is.
We had a quarterback here in Indianapolis who was horrendous. He was way worse.
But he didn't have the pedigree that Russell Wilson.
Yeah, he did. He's been MVP of the league
with the Colts.
You
mean when Peyton was there?
No. I'm talking about the guy that came from Atlanta. He was. And here we are.
Wait. The guy that came from Atlanta won a Super Bowl.
Ryan.
He won a Super Bowl.
Ryan.
He was an MVP. He didn't win the Super Bowl. He went to the Super Bowl, but he was MVP of the league. And He was horrendous.
He was bad.
He was horrendous.
And he got criticized too, David. People ripped him apart. People ripped him apart.
Not to the extent that I thought Russell Wilson got ripped apart. But yeah, anyway, I'm defending Russell.
Well, he's got this Peyton guy who's supposed to be an offensive guru. So we'll see what he can do with Russell. And together they're tied at the hip, and now we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but Peyton's not going on the field. I mean, what kind of help does this guy have? I don't like him, Russell Wilson, but what kind of help does he have?
Yeah, I don't.
That does matter.
It's more than just him. He got to have some help.
It does matter.
Can you name two of their wide receivers, or one of their tight ends, or their running backs?
No, I can't.
One of them is Judy, right?
Jerry Judy.
Oh, from Alabama.
Yeah,
from Alabama.
Isn't he hurt? I think he got hurt in preseason.
He got hurt in preseason. No, I didn't hear that. I didn't know that.
Jack Judy or Judy? Which one are you talking about?
Judy.
But I'll tell you what though, Burrows and the kid from the Chargers, the LA Chargers, they're going to be under, and the quarterback from Miami, they're all three are going to be under scrutiny as well in terms of expectations, especially now that the guy with the Chargers just got paid as well. He got paid big time.
Well, Joe Burrow is still hurt. Now he's going to play, I believe, but he got hurt hamstring or it looked like to me when I saw the injury, I was concerned that it might have been an Achilles.
Achilles, right?
Yeah, I think he hurt his calf muscle.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't look good. He has not played since that injury. He's not.
But he didn't play last exhibition. He didn't play last season during exhibition.
Well, I'm saying he didn't even practice.
Right.
He did not practice since that injury. So we'll see. And he's due some big money too.
Oh,
he'll probably leapfrog, the salary structure too. Any other thoughts about the NFL? Let's talk about what teams can we see other than Kansas City Chiefs making it all the way to the Super Bowl. Now, again, the season hasn't even started, and we're recording this, so you're on the record. I'm going to start with you, Chuck. Right now, sight unseen, season hasn't started. Preseason was 3 games. We don't know much. Who's going to win the Super Bowl right now?
Ravens will play the Eagles. The Ravens will win.
Okay. Larry Abels. We don't know a damn thing. It's the start of the season, but you have somebody in your back pocket that you're rooting for or you think is going to win. Who is it going to be?
And we cannot pick Kansas City, right?
You can pick Kansas City. Sure.
Oh, well, I think Kansas City will win. And it's really going to be tough coming out of that AFC, but I think that it's still the cream of the crop. NFC is really 3 teams: Dallas, San Francisco, and Philly. San Francisco beats Philly again. Kansas City beats Philly again.
Okay. Earl, the sports doctor, I know has some insight that none of us probably have.
I like Kansas City from the AFC. From the NFC, I can't make a pick. The NFC is trash to me, so
no, that is really insightful sports commentary.
No, I'm not going. If I'm on the record, I'm not going to commit myself to a team that I don't.
We want you on the record.
I don't believe in those teams.
Record. And next week you can correct the record. How about that?
Well, I would say San Francisco.
Okay.
And the winner would be Kansas City.
All right.
I wonder why people don't talk about the Eagles more. It's not that I'm an Eagles fan or whatever, but God, that team seems to be pretty loaded to me.
They did make the Super Bowl, but they didn't win the Super Bowl.
It was one of my 3 teams.
But I'll tell you something. They didn't win the Super Bowl, but it wasn't because that was a shootout. That was a hell of a game, and they scored a lot of points. And They looked good, man.
Well, let me tell you one of the reasons why maybe people are not picking the Eagles to win it all. The Eagles are gonna be good. Keep in mind they lost their offensive coordinator to the Colts, who's now head coach. They lost their defensive coordinator, so they have two new coordinators, even though they still have the same head coach. So there could be some upheaval in Philadelphia. Now, Jalen Hurts, hell of a player. You know, it's a great story, and he was paid appropriately.
Yeah,
Maybe for
I
some
agree.
people too early, and I know he's probably making way too much for you, Chuck. But
I've resolved that. Although I wanted to make one quick comment about when you were talking about the disparagement and the union not fighting for the players. The one thing that happened this summer that drives me crazy, and it's about, you mentioned it earlier about Kelsey, is that Saquon, I think Saquon is a big part of that giant offense. And for him to get 1/4 the money as Daniel Jones, that drives me. I just don't think Daniel Jones is that good. And it'll be interesting to see what happens.
well, but quarterbacks get paid.
I
And
know.
first of all, Daniel Jones, keep in
4
mind, let's
times
put it
as
in
much as
perspective,
Saquon.
in fairness. Saquon should get more money. Running backs great running backs, not just mediocre running backs, should get paid at least 20-some million per year. A great running back should be. But keeping in mind, I don't know. I'm not going to blame the union. I just think it's just kind of the way it goes. But I would agree with you in terms of what Saquon making less than that. But
For a fourth.
the quarterback is not getting top dollar. So Daniel Jones, even though you don't like him getting 40 million, because that's what he got, 40 million average, but he's not getting 60 million. That's still $20 million less than Aaron Rodgers, who's also in the same city, plays on the same football field. So let's keep that in perspective. You might not like Daniel Jones getting that money, but that's what the mid-tier guys are going to get is 35 to 40 million. Geno Smith got 35 million.
Let me ask you this, David. Do you consider Daniel Jones a mid-tier quarterback? I'm just asking.
At this point, yeah, because he brings a dual dimension to his game. If he was only throwing the ball, kind of like Mac Jones in New England, and that's all he did, then yes, he'd be overpaid and he'd be overhyped. But Daniel Jones had 700 and some yards rushing.
Yeah.
And quarterbacks, keeping in mind, let's the whole myth about the quarterbacks and quarterbacks running. First of all, it's a different type of running. Quarterbacks are running in open space. They're not, running backs don't run in open space. Running backs run through the line. Quarterbacks as a whole don't do that. They have wide open spaces, and offensive coordinators are taking advantage of the wide open spaces if the guy is smart enough to get down when it's time to get tackled. So Daniel Jones is getting paid appropriately because he brings another dimension. He didn't throw a whole lot of passing yards, but he did run for over 700 yards rushing. Years past, that would have been phenomenal. And, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
We don't get nobody $35 million because they ran 700 yards.
I guess that's where I'm coming.
Pass for nothing.
First of all, the Giants made the playoffs.
You're right.
He's an adequate quarterback who can run, and that matters. In today's football, it matters. And we haven't even mentioned the kid in Buffalo, who also runs, but kind of runs recklessly, but he's pretty darn good too.
I think the problem here with me is I don't really understand what mid-tier means. Because all you said don't mean still we give that guy $35 million.
Well,
no, he got 40
money.
He got 40
Mid-tier
million.
money.
I may not know what mid-tier means, so let's move on.
I'm going to educate you.
Okay. Because this guy's not a mid-tier quarterback.
He's not a top quarterback. The top guys are making at least $45 to $60 million a year. The next level is about 25 to 40 in that range. Now, Daniel Jones, because he's still young, wasn't going to get the low end of that. Otherwise, he would have left the team or would have done a holdout. They gave him what a quarterback of his level is going to get paid. He didn't get the $49 to $50 million a year. He didn't deserve that.
He's
And
not one
we
of
might
the
be uncomfortable. We might be uncomfortable with 40 million, but that's where it is now.
I
Here's
can
the
name
other
50
thing.
quarterbacks better than him. Does that make him mid-tier?
Here's the real thing: is the Giants didn't have any other options. That's what
Okay,
it was.
there you go.
That's
had
really
no
what it
option.
was.
I'll take that answer.
That's what it was. I mean, that probably was a win-win for both of them. He probably couldn't have gone on an open market and got much more than that, and they didn't have a replacement for him.
Right.
I didn't pick my Super Bowl team, and I guess I'm obligated because I asked the question.
Yes.
To pick my
Yes.
Super Bowl team. I'm not going to pick Kansas City because I just don't see them winning back-to-back. But I do think they're going to factor into the dynamics of who gets to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens, making it to the Super Bowl against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Somebody's already picked that conversation.
Somebody was pretty smart, and that person's pretty smart, just like me.
Oh, man.
Anyway, let's talk some college football. College football has been upended. The transfer portal, NIL. By the way, did you guys see Caleb Williams making a national TV commercial, a full-blown commercial? He's hugged up with
Dr.
somebody.
Pepper. I think it was Dr. Pepper.
He's been traded to Wendy's.
Oh, that's what it was. Well, no, you're right. No, you're right.
I mean,
You're right.
that's where college football is now. That is where college football is.
The guy from Alabama last year, he had the national
Indeed.
commercial.
College athletes in general, they can do that. Basketball players, football players, any.
Now, I'm going to start with Larry because Larry, the voice of reason, all of us have a role on this show. And Larry's the voice of reason. He has argued that NIL is not enough and that all of that football money, TV money, the conference realignment, all that, some of that should go to the players directly, and they shouldn't have to always worry about NIL. Larry, take it from there.
Well, you just took my statement exactly right. NIL is just like saying, get a part-time job. We're not going to pay you, and we're going to rake in millions and millions of dollars. At some point, I think that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And with respect to the realignments, I think that the football is going to all of a sudden have their own leagues. I think some of the teams in the Big Ten and the SEC and ACC are probably going to fall off some of their bottom feeders because everybody's really after that dollar. The term student athlete, and these are not coaches or anyone like that doing it. These are college presidents who have really shown that they don't give a crap about student athletes. If they did, think of the non-football sports that you play during the week that you have to go coast to coast to play. Think of that. Football is 1 week you can fly out there and fly back Friday and Sunday.
But you know what? On the whole thing about that flying across the country, first of all, most of these high-level players, and there's only really 50 schools that matter in college football anyway, maybe even 40, maybe 30. They're not even going to class. Look, they're professional players.
So
they were paid under the table before, and now they're superstars now. They're making commercials. They're not getting the money directly from the school, but they have the opportunity to make money. Like the young lady from University of Iowa basketball team. She's got a national commercial. She's making 10 times as much as she would make in the WNBA, and she's still at Iowa.
Angel's doing good too. Angel Reese down at LSU.
I'm all right. I'm all right for them having part-time jobs while they're in school. But when the school is making that type of money off you, they're tantamount to like the NFL. Not making quite the money, but they're making a lot of money.
Okay. Let's move this around. You mentioned realignment. The Big Ten now has 18 schools. You do the math. 10 is 10, right? Big 10, but they've not been 10 in years. Now they have 18, the Big 18. Earl, your thoughts on conference realignment, the Big 10, the demise of the Pac-12. There is no Pac-12 anymore functionally. Earl, your thoughts on what's going on with college realignment and teams moving around from conference to conference?
Well, just like you said before the show came on, I was saying I really, really don't understand why all this stuff is going on. But what is going on, I don't like the fact that we're losing the rivalries and all that. I guess I'm old school and I like to see certain teams play certain teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I would imagine common sense would tell me they're doing it for money reasons. So
yeah, oh, absolutely.
That's why mostly anybody does anything anyway. Not everybody, but
mm-hmm.
I don't like the realignment. I don't like it. I don't like it. The Pac-10 was a dead league, but I don't like that they just dissipated like that. I just don't like it.
Chuck, your thoughts on college football?
I agree. And again, guys, we are a little bit older and we like our traditions, and sports is regional, right? So maybe us in Washington, D.C. could care less about Washington versus Washington State, but up there, that's a big weekend and that's a big rivalry. And or USC and UCLA and Cal, Stanford, and so forth. So I just don't like them fooling around with some of these traditions and so forth for the money, right? So that's really my 2 cents worth. I just hate to mess around with these rivalries. I like those rivalries. I like.
Well, let's keep in mind.
Just
for a fact check here. Cal and Stanford both have been voted into the ACC. Now, again, that's a 2,200-mile travel from Northern California to the ACC. So that rivalry, Cal and Stanford, which is a long-standing rivalry, will stand. USC and UCLA went to the Big Ten. So an 1,800-mile thing to the Big Ten country. That rivalry will still stand. UCLA and USC is a big rivalry, but they'll still have it. So, I just so we can keep things in perspective, some of the rivalries will still stand.
Right.
But conference realignment is reshaping everything. And like, I think one of you might have suggested maybe retraction. Some teams get kicked to the curb. Look at the Big Ten. What happened at Northwestern? Northwestern brutalized, they had sexual assault of players and harassment, not just harassment, but sexual assault harassment. Could we see the Big Ten kick Northwestern to the curb, guys?
Well, there's contracts. Everybody's got these contracts and so forth. So I don't know. I don't think they could get kicked out. I don't.
It's going to depend on who can bring in the money. To give you an example, in the ACC, Clemson and Florida State went to the ACC and said, we're not getting a large enough cut. All right. So what happened when they took on Cal and Stanford? They're saying we got this fine academic institution.
Mm-hmm.
Their contract with ESPN says if you take on another team, we'll give those schools, we'll give you a full share for that. But those 2 schools are not even getting a full share.
I think for 9 years, right?
Well, Southern SMU is not getting anything. So that money is being split up amongst the teams that are already there. Probably Florida State and Clemson, who might have been looking at the SEC for a bigger payday. So I can see each other up like that.
Do you see possibly, and we'll try to wrap this up in a second, do you see possibly Florida State, Clemson abandoning the ACC? Because the ACC looks like they're the weak sister now. We've eliminated the Pac-12. Pac-12 is dead. The ACC is struggling. If you bring on SMU, you ain't much of a conference anyway.
They're getting all of their money. They're probably splitting their money, their share between those 2 teams. It's about the dollars.
Well, it's about the dollars, but the difference is the Big Ten and SEC, the top, those schools in the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get about 80 to 90 or $100 million per season. whereas in the ACC money is about $20 to $30 million per season.
Wow.
That's the disparity.
Yeah, I don't know what the dollar amount is. I know that ESPN has a contract with the ACC. Part of the Pac-10's problem was they didn't have a contract. They had tried to sign one with Apple, and it wasn't, since it's not on the regular air, you know, and they have to depend on subscribers. They couldn't pay the money. So that's why really all of those teams left. Well, that's why UCLA and USC left. That's why they left.
Okay. See, if I were Clemson, I wouldn't want to leave the ACC, because if I'm Clemson, I pretty much know if I win the ACC, I'll get invited to the national championship Final Four or Final Eight or wherever the heck it is.
It's going to be 12.
Right. So even if you lose to Duke.
Right.
Not this year.
I didn't see that coming, right? But I'm just saying, if I was
not
Clemson,
this year.
You get Clemson in the SEC, they might not be able to get in like they would if they were in this ACC. But if the money experiment, if the money is that big a difference, then maybe that is.
Yeah, they'll go. The money's right.
Yeah. If the money's right. Let's move on from college football. We're all going to be watching. We're all going to be betting. By the way, just a promotion for Earl and Larry's show on the weekend, Sunday morning. What time is it? What time is it, Earl?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock every Sunday. What's the show called?
Game Line, NFL Game Line. I'm sorry.
NFL Game Line. Watch Larry and Earl tell you where to place your dollars.
Yeah,
they're gonna make you some pizza money, as they say.
Pizza money, big time. Anyway, just wanted to promote your show. That's coming up.
Hey David, do you know about the tennis player that we were just talking about?
Which one? Francis Tiafoe or Ben Shelton?
No, the lady.
Madison
Coco?
Keys. Madison
Keys.
Yeah.
Do you know that what are her mother and father what are they? Black, Hispanic, white?
I think her father's
she's
biracial. Black and her mother's white.
Yeah, she's biracial. She's about 30 years old now, isn't she? She's been around for a few years. She's been around for a few years. So I wish her well. But Coco Gauff, I hope and pray Coco Gauff finally wins the U.S. Open. And to be honest with you, I'm pulling for Djokovic to finally get the undisputed championship of tennis, and hopefully he'll do that. But Alcaraz is pretty darn good.
Well, Keys is in the semifinals, as is Gauff, and it's possible if they both win, they can face each other in the championship.
Keys won tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'd like to see Madison Keys do well. She's always kind of there, and now this is her shot. Okay, guys, let's real quickly. We talk a little bit of tennis. We've been watching that last night. I tried really hard to stay up for the Tiafoe and Ben Shelton match. You had two African American players in the quarterfinals. That's quite an accomplishment. And American players hadn't been that far in darn near 20 years. American men hadn't been that far in about 20 years. It used to be I was really a big tennis fan. I still am kind of, but this was kind of exciting this year. Your thoughts, guys, and we'll start with you, Chuck.
It was exciting. They played till about midnight or something. In fact, it might have been later because I too turned it off at the. I just couldn't stay up. But it was a great match, and I hadn't heard of Ben Shelton. Now, again, I don't follow it as closely as you guys, perhaps, and I did know Tiafoe because he's from the D.C. area, I believe.
Yes, he is.
And it was a heck of a match. And Shelton is left-handed, so he looked a little bit like McEnroe or somebody of that nature. But they were hitting that ball, man. It was a good match.
Earl.
I thought it was a great match. I've been pulling for Tiafoe, but I've dropped him. He disappointed me last night by losing that.
Let's let the audience in on a little bit. Earl is Mr. Anti-DC, even though he is Mr. DC. You are Mr. DC.
Yeah, no, against this guy because he's from DC. I'm against him because he's holding under pressure. And I was rooting for him. That's all.
I rooted for him too. I mean, in all fairness, and I'm picking on you a little bit, and I apologize.
He
But
let me down, man. He let me down. But see, that's what happens. This is why I don't have a team anymore. I get too emotionally involved in these games and all that. And,
before we go on, we're talking DC right now. All of us are connected to DC indirectly or directly. The Washington Commanders, and we'll try to end the show shortly. The Washington Commanders have new ownership. We have been praying for that. I mean, I never hated the Redskins. I didn't hate the Washington football team or the now Washington Commanders, but Dan Snyder was loathsome. He was a horrifically bad owner. He was terrible. Thank goodness he's gone. And to my friends in the DMV, hopefully your Washington Commanders can do something. What do you guys think?
I'm optimistic. If Howell is a decent quarterback, I think they've got other pieces. And they said Magic was at practice today. Magic Johnson, I guess he's part of the ownership group. So I think you're right. We've turned the page, and now we're just looking forward. I think the key of that whole thing, I find it fascinating if and when they build a stadium. You're like, where? You know what I'm saying? So that's something.
And what's the latest on that right now?
I don't
Is
know.
anything to report?
I don't know.
Nah,
Larry,
I haven't heard nothing definite.
they're trying to fix up. They're trying to fix out the stadium in Landover, man.
yeah. They are spending $40
That's
million.
a short run thing because they're under contract till 2027. So
They're just putting $40 million into
Well,
it.
what they need to do is implode the disaster of the state. It's pathetic. It is a pathetic excuse for a stadium. Anyway, how do I really feel? I just told you.
I'm going to take a page out of your book, David.
Okay.
Okay. You said that the Jets haven't done anything in 55 years. They're not going to do anything. You said there'll never be anything. That's what you said.
I did say that.
Okay, right. Well, that's the page I'm taking out of the Redskins. They could change the owner
Commanders.
every whatever. They could change the owners yearly. The Commanders will never be anything. They're never going to be anything. We're talking about when we think about the Redskins. The Commanders, right? They're not going to be nothing now. They'll never be nothing. Whether they change the managers or not.
Where will they come, Earl, in the NFC East? Where will they come? Of the 4 teams in the NFC East, where will they end up?
Third.
Okay.
Third.
All right.
The NFL East will be Philly, Dallas, the Redskins, and the Giants. That's the order.
All right.
You can take that to the bank.
Okay, sports doctor. There it is.
All right.
We're going to wrap up the show.
David.
Yes, sir.
I
Okay,
didn't get
Larry.
to comment on the last 2 topics. Okay. Real quickly.
I'm so sorry, Larry.
With Shelton, I think it's great that an unranked player has gotten this far. And he seems, and I've watched a little bit of this, he seems to have a lot of momentum going for him. And I actually like his chance against the Joker tomorrow. I don't necessarily expect him to win, but I think he'll be competitive.
Wow.
As far as the football team, their biggest problem, the difference between them last year and the other teams in the division has been at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like Dan Snyder, but if they have a quarterback, if this guy can play, and I have no reason to think that he necessarily can, but if he can play, they could be competitive.
But the coach sucks as well. That's not just the quarterback problem. Their coach sucks.
Their quarterback play has been the difference between them and the other teams in that division now.
Okay. Well,
they've beaten all of them.
Can we all agree that Dan Snyder is gone? He is gone. He took $6 billion. That's a way to go.
Yeah, for $800 million investment.
That's a hell of a return, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be a bastard to make that much money. All right. Any closing thoughts? And I'm going to start with you, Larry, but since I have ignored you all night long.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk about the FIBA team that's in South Sudan. South Sudan is a relatively new country. It was the result of a civil war in Sudan, and South Sudan has been having a civil war. But that aside, their team has earned a berth in the Olympics. And all of their players are either refugees or children of refugees. But former NBA player Leo Dang got together with a guy named Royal Ivy. I think he's a coach for the assistant coach for the Houston Rockets, and is coaching them. Went to Africa. Matter of fact, they didn't even have a gym to play in. They had to play outside on a court. Some days during rain, part of the court wasn't even available. But they came out of their bracket, and they're going to the Olympics. My hat's off to them. And I hope they do well.
Amen. Amen. Chuck.
I just want to, mine will be quick. So they just had the world championship in track and field. Noah Lyles, who's from Alexandria, Virginia, he won the 100 and the 200. So that's back in America. And Shakira Richardson won the 100 meters. Of course, the Jamaicans came in second, third, and fourth. But the 100 meters is back for women. The 100 meters and 200 for men are back in America. And I just wanted to shout out both Shakira and Noah Lyles.
Earl, closing comment.
I just wanted to give a special splash out to Donald Fugel, Coach Donald Fugel. He was Bobby Kinser's coach in high school. He was my basketball coach in junior high school. He was a great man. He funny thing about it, back when we were growing up, as Bobby said, I found it rather strange. He was a white coach, and every player on his team was black, but he treated everybody very fairly. I think he was colorblind. I never saw him treat anybody mean or nasty. He even had coached a couple of good teams. That wasn't the team that I was on, but he coached good teams, and he was a great guy. I just want to mention it to a shout out. That's all. Rest in peace, Coach Fugel.
Rest in peace, indeed. I wish I'd have gotten to know the man and knew who he was. Closing thought for me, here in Indianapolis, we have been celebrating the coming of a young, up-and-coming quarterback, Anthony Richardson, from the University of Florida. Barely played at Florida, but his athletic skills are off the chart. I'm hoping and praying that maybe I can become an Indianapolis Colts fan again. It's been a long time, but good luck to Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts. With that, we're going to see you again next Wednesday, 8 o'clock. Be there or be square. This is the Real Fellas Talk Sports.